Ok, buenos días. Bueno, primero damos la bienvenida al señor embajador por esta visita a nuestra universidad y esta es la ocasión para que el embajador nos pueda comentar y conversar un poco acerca de China, ¿no? Es una clase magistral y es una gran oportunidad para nuestra universidad. Primero dejo con nuestro decano para dirigir algunas palabras.
Solo unas breves palabras, dada la presencia de nuestro amigo, el embajador New, porque para nosotros es un honor darle la bienvenida al embajador de China en Chile, como digo, el embajador New, a esta conferencia, llamémosla así, cuyo título es Innovación, cooperación e información e inversión China y América Latina. Como muchos sabrán, la Universidad del Desarrollo y China siempre han tenido una relación especial. Hasta la fecha, nuestra universidad ha llevado a China más de 2.500 alumnos, como para el programa Embajadores del Futuro, el que después de 15 años de funcionamiento ininterrumpido se ha visto precisamente eh, interrumpido, valga la redundancia, por la pandemia, pero que esperamos en un futuro próximo reanudar. A través de Embajadores de Futuro, los participantes han podido conocer de primera fuente las bondades de China en distintos aspectos tales como crecimiento económico, desarrollo tecnológico, sí mismo, su cultura y por supuesto su gente. La Universidad del Desarrollo cuenta con programas de cooperación y alianzas estratégicas con múltiples instituciones, dentro de las que, de China me refiero, dentro de las que destacan la Universidad de Tsinghua, la Universidad de Nanjai, la Universidad del Sur de China de Ciencia y Tecnología, la Academia China de Ciencias Sociales y el Instituto de Relaciones Internacionales de China Contemporánea, mejor conocido como CIR o KIKIR. Esta cooperación es particularmente relevante cuando consideramos que China y Chile son los países más alejados uno del otro en esta parte del planeta, lo que representa una importante barrera, pero a pesar de esto, gracias a los esfuerzos de nuestro país, hemos logrado construir una rica y cercana relación en los últimos 50 años. En mi opinión, la base de esta exitosa relación radica en que China y Chile, desde ambas riberas del Océano Pacífico, comparten el objetivo común de fomentar la liberalización y la facilitación del comercio y la inversión, junto con promover la cooperación inclusiva y de ganancia mutua en el área que comprende la totalidad del Asia-Pacífico. En el pasado, ser parte del Océano Pacífico y especialmente en el caso de Chile, que está ubicado en el sur de dicho océano, es estar al fin del mundo. Dicen que Chile significa eso. Hoy día estamos en el centro y debemos tomar ventaja de eso. China ha avanzado a pasos agigantados durante las últimas décadas, no solamente en materia de crecimiento económico, sino que también tecnológico, gracias a lo que ha alcanzado un lugar privilegiado en la escena internacional. Hoy la República Popular China es nuestro primer socio comercial, segundo a Europa e incluso a los Estados Unidos. Pero no se trata solo de comercio. Además, nuestros países han alcanzado acuerdos para fortalecer no solo el intercambio de bienes y servicios o la inversión, sino que también el movimiento de personas, cultura, todo tipo de interacciones, en definitiva, entre ambas naciones. Chile y China han tenido relaciones por un largo periodo de tiempo, más de 50 años. En este sentido, nuestro fue el primero en América Latina en establecer relaciones diplomáticas con China, pero también fue el primer país en apoyar a China para ser parte de la Organización Mundial de Comercio, lo que produjo un significativo cambio, dado que permitió la unión de China a esta organización, cambiando la estructura comercial internacional de manera significativa, como lo mencioné. El camino que hemos recorrido como países socios es significativo y asistimos a un nivel de intercambio que pocos habrían podido imaginar unas décadas atrás. Pero sabemos también que aún existen oportunidades inexploradas que nos permiten complementarnos y expandirnos. Y para avanzar en ello es necesario continuar nuestro intercambio de experiencias, además de aumentar el flujo comercial e incentivar la inversión recíproca. Por eso las iniciativas como esta son tan relevantes, dado que son un espacio de intercambio de ideas y permiten dar a conocer ejes culturales y centrales de las relaciones entre ambos países. Por ese motivo, le doy nuevamente la bienvenida a todos y en especial al embajador. Muchas gracias.
My turn? Well, Professor Guzman, Dean of this faculty, Professor Li Linzuo, and faculty members and students, good morning. I thank Professor Guzman for his introduction of me, even though I didn't understand a word. I wish I could show respect to you by speaking Spanish, if I can, but unfortunately I can't. So it's a great honor for me today to be able to meet with the faculty members and the students of the very good University of UDD. And I believe you are all interested in things happening outside of the borders of Chile, in countries like China and other countries. I have no idea how keen is your interest in things that are happening in China. Anyone know what's happening right now in China? Sorry? Yeah. This is the single most important thing that's happening in China, but it will have impact outside China's borders. Why? Because China right now is a very active player in international affairs, in global affairs. While the Communist Party of China is the government party in China, according to the constitution. So what happens in China are basically, administered by the party. So the party's policies and wishes through the National People's Congress becomes policies of the country. That's why it is so important for us to know what's happening within the party. And we are lucky that right now, the 20th Party Congress is convening in Beijing. So let me share with you some of the key information of the Party Congress. And then I will be happy to interact with you to take questions. About the Party Congress. This Congress is a 5-year event. Every 5 years, the party convenes a national Congress to discuss and make decisions on the following 5 or even longer period. This time, the Party Congress is attended by 2,340 delegates and specially invited delegates from all areas in China. Well, the Secretary General of the Committee of the party, Mr. Xi Jinping, on behalf of the 19th Central Committee, delivered a keynote report to the 20th Party Congress. So what I want to share with you are some of the elements contained in Mr. Xi's work report. In the report, he reviewed what the Communist Party has done in the past 5 and 10 years, 5 years, especially past 10 years since the 18th Party Congress. And he reviewed the major events and achievements. 3 of the major events he mentions in the report are: the Communist Party of China embraced its centenary. That was in 2021, because the party was established in 1921. And the second epochal event is that the Chinese socialism, or socialism with Chinese characteristics, has entered into a new era since 2012. And thirdly, the third major event that we witnessed in the past 10 years is that China completed the task of total poverty alleviation. So the country right now is having a moderate prosperity, and we have completed our first centenary goal. Talking about the centenary goal, we have two centenary goals, the first, the second. The first centenary goal is that by 2021, 100 years after the establishment of the Communist Party, China would be able to build itself into a moderately prosperous country. And the second centenary goal is that by around 2050, that is 100 years after the establishment of the People's Republic, China would build itself into a prosperous, strong, democratic, and beautiful country, so that the Chinese nation will see a great rejuvenation. So China has completed its first centenary goal, and we are now in the journey for the second centenary goal. So that's only 3 sentences, only 3 subjects, but each of them contains sufficient information which deserves probably hours of deliberation, which I don't think I have the luxury of the time. But that said, we also accomplished many other achievements that meant a lot, not for the Communist Party, not only for China, the country, and the Chinese people, but also for the world, such as economically, China has become the second largest economy. The per capita GDP of China has just passed the median level of world average. And in science and technology, China is also in the rank of technologically advanced countries. And we devote around 2.4% of our GDP to R&D. And in the past 10 years, rule of law has taken roots in China. The government administers in accordance with the law, and the society is run according to the rule of the law. And of course, internationally, China is one of the major players. We have always tried to defend international order, world peace. We have also tried our best to promote common development, and of course defend international rules and to be a supplier of public goods. That said, from now on, the central task of the Communist Party of China would be to lead and unite all people of all ethnic groups in China, to build China into a modern socialist country, which is strong, prosperous, democratic, and beautiful. So that all of our people can live in a prosperous life. That is Chinese style of modernization. And there is, well, Chinese modernization, like modernization of other countries. We have the commonalities of other countries' modernity, and we also have some of our unique characteristics. So the Chinese style modernization, I would say, contains 4 critical features or characteristics. Number 1 is that this is a modernization for a mega-sized population. Never in the history of mankind we have seen a country with such a large population being modernized. The large developed country like the United States is only more than 300 million people, while our population is more than 4 times bigger. And secondly, this is a modernization of common prosperity. We have not and will not leave anyone behind. That is why by now, even though we are a moderately prosperous society, we have lifted all rural residents who live under the existing criteria of poverty line out of poverty. We used to have more than 800 counties that were impoverished, more than 120,000 villages that are impoverished, and hundreds of millions of people living under poverty line. So we have lifted in the past 10 years almost 100 million out of poverty. That's why we stress especially common prosperity. And a third feature of China's modernization is that this is a modernization, this is a harmony between man and nature. We are not going to exploit natural resources in such a way that our development is not sustainable. And we believe that clean water and lush mountains are valuable assets of not only this existing generation, but also for coming generations as well. And a final feature of China's modernization is that this is a modernization with a peaceful development. I do not want to point fingers at other developed countries who benefited or modernized through imperialism or colonialism. But in China's case, we are self-dependent. It means we take our own path of development and we rely on our independent resources to reach or acquire modernization. We do not colonize other countries. We do not exploit other peoples. So these are China's modernization. Well, since you are students of the international relations faculty, so I believe you care a lot about China's foreign policy. Well, this is also an important part of the work report delivered by Mr. Xi Jinping. Well, China, how do we see the world around us? How do we see ourselves as a player in international affairs? And what's the central tasks of China's diplomacy? First of all, the Communist Party has a founding aspiration. That is to serve the Chinese people and to contribute to human progress. While for China's diplomacy, the ultimate goal of China's diplomacy is multifaceted. First of all, we would strive to build international peace or world peace, a lasting peace for the world and for all countries, possibly for all countries, especially for ourselves. And secondly, we work very hard to promote common development. Like China's poverty alleviation, in global development, we also do not want to see any country being left behind. And we think that global growth is only sustainable when all countries are on board. And thirdly, the central task of China's diplomacy is to build a human community with a shared future. This is one globe. We only have one globe. We only have one Earth. All countries, if we are united, we rise together. If we are divided, we fall together. So these are three of the main targets of China's diplomacy. To achieve this diplomacy, we do need to have good governance for all countries in the world and equally contributed by all countries, all peoples in the world. So if we are going to modify some of the features of the world, of course, first of all, we would like to see a world that enjoys lasting peace. And secondly, we want the world to have common security, that is, security for all countries and for all peoples. And we want to see and work for common development. And of course, we want the world to be open and inclusive. And thirdly, we want the world to be clean and sustainable. These are some of the key elements that China wants to see in today's world. What do we do? In today's world, well, many things are happening. Some countries may have different ideas. So we need to promote a common values, some common values like or shared values, values shared by all countries and civilizations. That is peace, development, fairness and justice, and freedom. These are values shared by all countries and civilizations. We want the world, the international relations could be even more democratized, so that all countries, big or small, weak or strong, are equal players in world governance. Well, China, we follow an independent foreign policy of peace, and 5 principles of peaceful coexistence is the founding principle of China's diplomacy. 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, like sovereignty and national territorial integrity, non-intervention, non-aggression, mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and development. I think you value more interactions rather than being lectured by me. I'll leave most of the time for you, so that you can either make comment or inquiries. Don't be afraid to raise tough questions. I know students are proud of this, to be able to raise tough questions. The worst thing I can do is I cannot answer. So please go ahead.
Thank you very, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, for the excellent speech about China and its diplomacy. And now, well, your turn, the professor and student. Puede hacerlo en español o en inglés. Okay, I go on.
The zero COVID? First of all, clarification. This is not a zero COVID policy. Our policy, huh? Oh, yeah. Yes. First of all, I have to clarify that our policy is not zero COVID. We know that the whole world is like a village. Until all countries are safe, no one is safe. So, and this disease sees no borders. This is no difference in borders and races. This is contagious, infectious disease. Our goal is dynamic zero COVID, meaning we are not asking for zero infections. We are aiming to eliminate this or stop the spread of the disease whenever it appears. Talking about the dynamic zero, well, I have to admit that different countries follow different policies in COVID response. In the very early days of the COVID, people knew very little about it. Many people died of it. So the ultimate goal of the Chinese government is to protect the people's lives and health. So the Communist Party of China has the policy of people priority and life priority. So we have taken prompt and effective measures to bring COVID under control in a matter of about 2 months, from daily infections of more than 10,000 to almost zero. So I know that some foreign media has shown keen interest in what's happening now and what will happen. What I want to say is that because different countries have different national conditions, China, as I said, even though we have achieved a lot in the past, we are still a developing country. Our resources in medical system, especially the per capita, is very limited. And China's population is aging pretty fast. So we have to take very good care of the senior population and those who do not enjoy sound health. So to prevent the collapse of the health system, prevention is always the most efficient and cost-effective policy of controlling contagious pandemics. So it served China's interest, and it will continue to serve China's interest. That said, I'm not going to say COVID response has no impact on rate of economic growth. It does hurt economic growth, but we think it is worthwhile to temporarily sacrifice a couple of percentage points of economic growth for the health and the lives of our people. And we're also going to adapt our responsive measures to new conditions so that our responses will be more efficient and based on scientific researches. China has been changing its policy and will continue to, with the ultimate goal of bring the pandemic under control while keep the economy grow at a reasonable rate. I think that is a policy that serves China as well as the world. Thank you.
La segunda pregunta, allá.
First of all, I really want to thank you for the leadership today. You touched on a really interesting point about the Chinese foreign policy, which is about building a common ground between different countries. And admittedly, I'm not as in tune with the Chinese foreign policy I'd like to be. So I would just like to know how is China establishing relations with other countries to reach this common ground and to be able to progress in international relations in common objectives.
This is mainly reflected in our major initiatives. Is the human community with a shared future. As I said, China does think, even though we have different countries with different concerns, but as a whole, the world is one. So if we say care for each other, we prosper together. If I use our neighbor's yard as a ditch for our own overflow. That not only hurts our neighbor, but also ultimately will hurt ourselves as well. So in international governance, China has always been campaigning for globalization, true multilateralism, and the international, say, collaboration in we have stressed fairness and just in world governance. Some examples, such as in the values, if some country thinks they are superior to other countries, or some civilization regards itself as superior to other civilizations, that is a root cause for conflict and confrontation. So China has always been campaigning for a dialogue between different civilizations, so that different civilizations respect each other and enrich from each other. If all countries, especially major countries, can take a leading role in campaigning for fairness and just, for equality, sovereign equality, and non-interference in other countries' internal affairs, this world will be a very good one.
Good afternoon. So China is trying to expand their interest or influence in other regions, especially in this new project of the new Silk Road. But my question goes more towards what's their position towards the withdrawal of the U.S. forces in Afghanistan, and what their position in the conflict between Israel and Palestine, its connection between Asia and Europe.
Belt and Road Initiative. That is a major initiative of China's in the last 10 years. Because the world is experiencing economic difficulties and say conflicts, some countries, especially developing countries, are experiencing difficulties. And the existing international economic governance doesn't seem to deliver all the goods that we hope to see. So China has put the Belt and Road Initiative. I have to say that this is not meant to be a replacement of existing international economic regimes. To the contrary, it is a supplement, so that it can be a platform of a platform for different countries to have policy coordination and to have unimpeded trade, so that we discuss what we can do to facilitate free movement of goods and financing as well. So this is a public goods that China has offered to the world, and China is, of course, part of it. Since the initiative was put forward, it has received it has received popular support and response from the world. More than 140 countries have signed an agreement or volunteered to be partners in Belt and Road projects. Chile is also a partner in Belt and Road, and we have seen a lot of touchable results of Belt and Road's cooperation, such as investment and people-to-people ties as well. Well, you also asked for Afghanistan. Afghanistan is China's neighbor. We would like to see all our neighbors enjoy peace and prosperity. Due to historical reasons, it hasn't been that easy for Afghanistan. We do wish them well, and we will do our best to offer aid, either economically or technologically or culturally. We strongly support Afghanistan to safeguard their national sovereignty, territorial integrity, their choice of their own in developing their country. And we also hope that the whole world should also respect Afghanistan's sovereignty, territorial integrity, respect the internal affairs, and as much as they can to help them alleviate poverty, develop their infrastructure, better their education, so that the country enjoys prosperity, that which will be good not only for Afghanistan's neighbors, but also for the world, including the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal, because Afghanistan is a member of the international community. Any country left behind in the SDG is not desirable. As for Israel-Arab relations, we think that the United Nations have passed many resolutions supporting a peaceful solution of the conflict. China is always siding with peace, and we respect the rights of the Palestinians, their right to existence, their right to peace, and their right to development.
Do you think the actual conflict with the government of Taiwan can affect long-term the economy and the relation with our country?
What's the question?
Do you think that the actual conflict with your government and Taiwan can affect in long-term the economy and the relation with our country?
Thank you for your question. Let me brief you the status of the Taiwan question. This is not between China and Taiwan. This is China's internal affairs, because historically, Taiwan has always been a part of China, and in international law, Taiwan is also part of China. Even though it was forcefully seized in the history by the Netherlands, and more recently by Japan, but with the end of the Second World War, China recovered Taiwan with legitimate support, not only historical background, but also international treaties, such as the Cairo Declaration and Potsdam Proclamation, both of which explicitly stated that Taiwan is part of China, seized or illegally seized by Japan, returned to China. And in 1971, the United Nations General Assembly also passed its resolution number 2558, explicitly putting the Taiwan question to a legal end. This resolution stated that there is only one China. People's Republic of China is the sole legal, represents the sole legal China. and Taiwan is part of China. According to United Nations documents, official documents, Taiwan name is Taiwan Province of China. Not only on multilateral platforms, but also in bilateral terms, China has diplomatic relations with 181 countries. Each and every of those 181 countries sign diplomatic treaties with China, explicitly recognizing that there's one China, Taiwan is part of China. They maintain their unofficial Taiwan. So that's the official status of Taiwan. It is still, according to some people, self-governed. It's only because at the end of China's civil war in the late 1940s, in fact, the Kuomintang or Nationalist Party lost their civil war, lost the support of the people, and fled to Taiwan. So Taiwan has always been part of China. The sovereignty of China always covers or includes Taiwan. As for the cross-state relations, that is between the mainland and the island, the central government is very clear in its position. We are for and will resolutely work for a peaceful unification with one country, two systems that respect the conditions of the island. But we will not, say, denounce any measures of use of force. But that is to deter Taiwan separatist forces and foreign forces that supports Taiwan's independence. So as long as the Taiwan Authority accept the one China consensus, one China principle, the cross-strait relations will be stable and prosperous. And a unified, reunified China is not only in the interest of the Chinese nation, but also helps regional and global peace and stability, because that will remove elements or elements of instability, which the whole world does not want to see, right? The world wants to see stability and prosperity. The world does not want to see war provoked by Taiwan split forces and foreign forces that support them. And this will also be a very good plus for China-Chile bilateral relationship. Chile, along with the other 180 countries, also officially explicitly recognize the one China principle. So we have full confidence that this one China policy will remain unchanged, and we can, say, work hard to promote bilateral mutual understanding and friendship. Understanding brings friendship, friendship brings more, say, or a higher level of partnership.
Thank you, Ambassador. I wanted to ask you, I visited the city of Xi'an, and I found out that there's a lot of young people that are the ones that speak English, speaks older people from China didn't understand so well. So my question is based in, is China going to adapt to the international system as a developing country by teaching more English so it can, the relationships can prosper between countries, for example, like Chile that they speak Spanish and use the Chinese that we communicate through English, or is the responsibility of the other countries to start learning Chinese
it's going to prosper more and it's going to be more important to learn Chinese in one point than English? That is my question.
That is a very good question. Obviously, you have done a lot of research and thinking. China, as I said, China's modernization is one of common prosperity and one of peaceful development. We adopt a policy of opening, reform and opening to the outside world. Since late 1970s, China has taken reform and opening to the outside world as a fundamental strategy of China's. And I've seen marvelous achievements of this opening. China has benefited from opening to the outside world, and the world also has benefited from China's opening. So we know that without opening, no country, especially China, which is so big, can prosper by its own. So China will remain open and will be more open to the outside world. And that, of course, requires talents, people who can interact, communicate with the outside world. So we need more people who can speak languages of other countries. On the other hand, China is also a country that has self-confidence in its own traditional culture. And the Chinese civilization has been one that has been leading the world for a couple of thousand years. We want also to rejuvenate our good civilization, our good traditions, and our good, excellent culture. And we do not want to keep it to ourselves. We also want to share what we have with the world, with other countries. So we would encourage other countries and peoples to learn more about China. And the best way of learning more about China is able to speak the language, to read the documents, read the novels, poems, and history. So more exchanges between different countries is something to be encouraged, to be aspired. We also encourage our young people to learn Spanish. Even though more and more people can speak Spanish in China today, but we still don't think that's enough. Equally or reciprocally, we encourage Chilean students to have more interest in learning Mandarin, so that whenever you have a chance to travel in China, you can feel proud in communicating with the local people without speaking a third language or an interpreter. This university, do you know how many of your friends read or speak Chinese?
How much?
Encourage them to.
We all know China and Chile are very good commercial partners. Hence, that's why you're here as the Chinese ambassador in Chile, but we still don't have a Chilean ambassador in China. So what does that say about Chinese and Chilean relations, and how do we move forward with this?
Even though Chile and China are different in size, in the length of history, and in culture, and in many other areas, but we are true friends with each other. China values the role of Chile as an important country and an important player in international affairs. You mentioned that we are commercial partners. Probably not all of you know that our commercial partnership has been so resilient that it beats most other bilateral commercial partnerships. For example, in spite of the COVID-19, which has caused a lot of trouble to international trade, but our bilateral trade between China and Chile has been growing robustly. Like in 2020, when most of the world saw a decreased trade, our bilateral trade grew by more than 10%. Last year in 2021, our bilateral trade grew by almost 40%. And this year, for the first half of this year, it grew at a further 12.4 or 12.6% compared with the same period last year. So as of now, China is Chile's largest trading partner, largest source of import, and largest export market, and also Chile's largest source of foreign surplus, trade surplus. And equally, Chile is China's important trading partner in Latin America, third largest in Latin America. Even though you are not the third largest economy, but you are China's third largest trading partner in Latin America. So this bilateral partnership has brought our two countries, our two peoples closer together. Together with the trade, we are also partners in technological advancement and people-to-people ties as well. And especially culturally speaking, Chile, I think, even though Chile officially recognized the People's Republic in the 1970s, but on the grassroots, Chilean people started the friendship with China in 1950s, early 1950s, a whole 20 years before our official establishment of diplomatic relations. Probably many of you know that eminent Chileans, Venturelli, Neruda, they started the Chile-China Cultural Institution to focus on people-to-people friendship. And this institution was joined by President Allende. So I strongly encourage that cultural exchanges between our two countries, because they are a solid foundation for commercial, technological, and other collaborations.
Okay, because of time, we have two last questions. One. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nimo. I'd like to ask about, do you think the world is dividing in two blocks, like the Cold War? In one block, China and Russia, and in the other, NATO. And also considering the trade war, in other words, do you think we are heading toward a new Cold War?
First of all, we don't think the world are in two blocks. That's the intention probably of some people who want to divide the world into different blocks. We think the world is a complete whole. So, and we are for universal solidarity in meeting the challenges that we face together. You mentioned China, Russia. China and Russia do have good partnership relationship, but we are not allies. China doesn't believe in alliance. We believe in partnerships. Cold War. China is opposed to the Cold War mentality. And we are opposed to any forms of bullying and hegemony. We think that all countries should work in on the same platform, should make equal contributions or equal according to different capabilities. And the world can prosper with interconnectivity. If we suffer from, say, block confrontation or a breakup of industrial or supply chains, not only China suffers, the world suffers. Chile will also suffer. I recall that since the Ukraine crisis, some Chilean farmers have experienced difficulty in importing chemical fertilizers because of the temporary break of the international supply chain. That explains why all countries, big or small, should campaign for a common cause of peace and stability and common development. And we should also resolutely oppose dividing the world into different blocks, trying to break up the supply and industrial chains. And different civilizations should respect each other, have dialogue with each other, and enrich from each other.
Thank you. You have the last question, please.
I'm British, and I think in recent years it's quite clear that relations between China and Britain have soured a little bit with Hong Kong and the war in Ukraine. So my question is, when two countries with relations sour, how do you bridge that gap and come back together to avoid further conflict?
Well, China, as I said, follows an independent foreign policy of peace. We want to befriend all countries, while at the same time, we have to defend our national interests, especially our core national interests, such as non-interference into our internal affairs and respect of our sovereignty and territorial integrity. You mentioned the Hong Kong question. Hong Kong question is say, it has a complex historical background because Britain was the colonial master. So because of the colonial past, what Britain should do is respect China's sovereignty and stop from interfering into how Hong Kong is governed. So as long if both countries can proceed from the mutual understanding of mutual respect, I don't see any problem or difficulty that China, UK can embark on another period of friendship and collaboration. We do have to respect each other, stop from regarding the other party as a sort of a threat. There is some saying by British politicians who regard China as a threat. How can China be a threat to UK or any other country? That is not possible. That is not China's intention, and that is not a reality. That will not be a future possibility. So if we regard each other as friends, we will be friends. If anyone, say, takes the other, see the other as an enemy, he will probably do whatever he can to strengthen himself against the other party. That will only cause suspicion from the other party. And this will be a vicious cycle. I hope there won't be any vicious cycle between any two countries or any other countries. And for this to be realized, we need the willingness and efforts from both parties. As people say, we need two hands to clap, clap, but sometimes one hand is possible to pick up a fight.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.